Well, hello everyone. This is Troy Harper here at Harper Cigar Lounge. Welcome back to part three of Havana to Horror, where I am reading the original 1978 Halloween scripts from the original 1978 movie, produced and directed by Debra Hill and John Carpenter. And welcome back. I'm glad you're here. Before I continue on, I've got a really great cigar that I will be smoking and reviewing tonight. This is a great cigar with a history from Havana, Cuba. And this is the Bolivar Churchill 7 by 49. Try to get you a close up there a little bit more. Anyway, great looking stick. And this again is the Bolivar Churchill 19, or I'm sorry, Bolivar Churchill 7 by 49 with a wrapper from Honduras. Binder, USA, Connecticut. Filler is Dominican Republic and Nicaragua. Medium to full bodied cigar made by General Cigar Dominicana, and the country of origin is the Dominican Republic. Taste notes are noted as earth, oak, spice, toast, and coffee. So we'll see what taste notes we get out of this tonight. But again, the Bolivar Churchill 7 by 49. Beautiful, beautiful stick. Definitely reminds me of a stick that you would smoke definitely in Cuba, um, back in the early 1900s or so. A little bit of history on this cigar. Um, this cigar provides one powerful smoke full of earthy and oak flavors. It has a full-bodied flavor with a complex character. At best, it's toasty with coffee notes and a pleasant finish. Some other tasters found it to be an amazing cigar, top of the line. Um, the Cuban Bolivar cigars has a reputation among cigar aficionados of being one of the strongest and most full-bodied cigars, with its Royal Corona, Coronas Junior, Petit Coronas, and Bellicosos, Finos being famous examples of the Marquis. In 2002, when Taldus bought a controlling share in the Cuban government-owned cigar distributor Habanos SA, a number of changes in cigar production were instituted. One of these changes was the decision to gradually turn the various brands of Cuban cigars to either all handmade or all machine made lines, which this is a long filler handmade cigar. It is handmade, long filler, and let's see here. To go back in some history on the cigar, um, the Cuban produced Bolivar cigars are very full bodied with considerable ligero in the blend and have traditionally been some of the strongest and most full-bodied Havana cigars. The brand was founded possibly in Great Britain by Jose F. Roca around 1901 or 1902, though the brand was not registered in Havana, Cuba until 1921, until the ownership of Roca's firm J. F. Roca YCIA. During this time, the Boulevard brand produced the world's smallest cigar called the Delgado, measuring a mere 1 7/8 inches with a 20 ring gauge. Um, so anyway, and what is a ligero leaf? Ligero is a type of tobacco leaf found near the top of each tobacco plant, slower to mature than the Seco and Viso leaves found at the middle of the plant, or the easy burning Velato leaves at the bottom. Ligero leaves are characterized by a coarse texture and produce smoke with a potent spicy taste. Ligero leaf is selected for the manufacture of heavy, full-bodied cigars, being rolled at the very center of the filler bundle owing to its slow burning nature. So anyway, there's a little history on there for you. And again, this is the Bolivar Churchill 7 by 49 with a wrapper from Honduras, binder USA, Connecticut, filler Dominican Republic, and Nicaragua. Medium to full bodied, probably more on the full bodied side. And again, made by General Cigar Dominicana, country of origin is Dominican Republic. Taste notes again are earth, oak, cedar. or I'm sorry, earth, oak, spice, and toast, and coffee. So we'll see what this does. We'll see how it does tonight. But a cigar where um it's family originated, some of the early cigars were definitely in Havana, Cuba, like I said, which was started in 1920, let's see, 1921. So yeah, I was right, 1921. But so it wasn't registered in Havana until 1921, the cigar. So it does have a family history of being, part of Havana, Cuba, for being a big part of Cuba, of course. So anyway, let's get this cut and clipped, or clipped and cut and lit and toasted, however you want to say it. We're gonna clip it first, and then gonna toast it up. But I want to get a taste of that wrapper. Very mild tasting wrapper. Some natural tobacco sweetness with it. And I'm using my Deadwood Tobacco Company cutter. Got a protector there so you can't put your cigar in too far. It's not very often that I use this cutter. Of course, I got it right at the Deadwood Tobacco Company in Deadwood, South Dakota, here a few years back. But anyway, got a nice cut there. We'll see how it does. But yeah, so of course, with this show, the show here, I've been trying to find cigars. I have a history from Cuba, from Havana, Cuba. That's why it's called Havana, to horror. So pairing it with a great horror content, which again, this is part three. I'm reading the final scripts of the original scripts for the Halloween 1978 movie, again directed and produced by Debra Hill and John Carpenter. So we're gonna get into that here in a moment. Um, Want to get this lit or toasted up, and then I'll do a final light on it, and then we will continue on. Before we continue on with the scripts, I got a little something to show you, and I've also got my Deadwood Tobacco Company uh, lighter tonight that I'm using, double torch flame lighter, or double flame torch lighter, I should say. Give this a quick toast, and I'll actually do my final light with some matches. And I'm just wanting to heat that tobacco up. I don't want to toast it or scorch it. Don't want to scorch the heck out of it. Of course, in Halloween 2 and Halloween 2 from 1981 or 1980, and then Halloween Kills. Of course, Michael Myers gets, the end of Halloween from 2018, and then in Halloween 2, which is called Halloween Kills in 2021, Michael Myers gets pretty toasted during those episodes, during those spots. So I don't want to do that to this cigar. I want to just toast it nicely, get the tobacco heated up, and then get this going the way it should with a final light. So got that nice even orange and reddish glow. Hmm. Getting some nice spice right off the bat. Getting some of that cedar, and getting some coffee, definitely. Getting some coffee. So anyway, we'll see how this continues to do. So anyway, let me show you guys something, and appreciate you guys being here, by the way. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, make sure you do that today. Hit the like, leave your comments, questions, and feedback. Share this content with everybody you know, and make sure you hit that bell below. to get all the current updates on this channel, so you can see all the latest content, anything going on with this channel. Also, I want to show you guys my new Nightmare 5 cap, which is based around Michael Myers. There's some blood splatter on the brim and around the sweatband there, you can see. But anyway, on the inside, it's got Michael Myers. So this is my newest cap from Boston Scally, the Nightmare 5, with themes of Michael Myers. Anyway, there's the Michael Myers house. The pumpkin that you usually see either on the house from the very first movie or at the beginning of the credits. There's Michael's knife, and there's another cap pin there that matches the inside of the cap. Wish that would focus a little better there. There it goes. So anyway, there's the knife and Michael Myers on the pin that matches the inside of the cap there on the lining. But anyway, if you guys are interested in Boston Scally, I'll leave a link for you. These caps are fortunately sold out now, so you can't get this one. But glad I got it when I did. Glad I got it. So let's go to the one of the original trailers. That's been, well, this trailer's been updated in HD, and so it sounds really good, looks really good. So let's take a look at this old trailer from Halloween, and better put my share sound on so you guys can hear this. But let's take a look at the old trailer of Halloween. Let's see here. Oh, I don't want that. Oh, here we go.
Just try to understand what we're dealing with here. Don't underestimate it.
Don't you think we could refer to it as him?
If you say so. He hasn't spoken a word in 15 years.
I told everybody! Nobody listened. Get back in there and get back on that telephone and tell them exactly who walked out of here last night.
He is coming to Haddonfield.
Up in rows, up and down these streets. You're telling me they're lined up for a slaughterhouse?
Death has come to your little town, Sheriff.
Check everyone off your list.
Okay. So anyway, that was an updated trailer. I believe because they had put those back in that movie back into theaters at one time, select theaters at one time. Not sure when that was exactly, but I know this year they had put the original Halloween in select theaters as well again. I think it's kind of a tradition for certain theaters to bring that movie back and to put that, into theaters. So if you guys have ever caught that in a theater, whether it was back when you were a kid or when you were young, when you got to see it originally when it first came out, or if you've seen it over the years, let me know. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you thought of the movie. Let me know what you thought of the quality of the HD experience at the theaters when they re-brought that out over, I don't know, over the years. I think they've done it quite a few times. I'm not sure when the first time they would have put it back in the theaters again, but let me know if you guys have ever seen it in the theaters, whether it was again when it first originally came out or later on in years when they brought it back to the theaters. Let me know what your experience was. Let me know what you thought of the quality of the movie, because a lot of it had been remastered or has been remastered for theaters. So let me know what you guys think. But anyway, the past two episodes, of course, discussed in the beginning when Michael killed his sister when he was, in 1963, when he was a young child, killed his sister, and then he then, of course, in 1978, escaped from the asylum, the insane asylum, Smith Grove, um, and then um, and then Michael, of course, um, and then of course Michael, for some reason, was able to drive away in the doctor's car, Dr. Loomis's car, um, and then of course um, yeah, I was double checking myself. It is the Smiths Grove, Warren County Sanitarium is where Michael Myers escaped. I did have that correct. Um, but anyway, so yeah, in the first movie, Michael kills his sister, then he's put into an asylum and or a sanitarium, and then he escapes. In 1978, he escapes on August 30th of 1978. And then of course he gets into Dr. Loomis's car, drives away after attacking Nurse Marion that was in the car still. When they had just saw they had went to the sanitarium where Michael was, and they saw all kinds of uh, patients out in the yard on a really stormy night, and and they were wondering why all these patients were out. And Dr. Loomis gets out to go unlock the gate, I think, if I remember right, so they could get in. And while that happens, Michael Myers jumps on top of the car, attacks Nurse Marion, and she jumps out of the car into a ditch. He gets in the car and drives off. And then after that, there was a mask and a knife and some rope stolen at a hardware store. And Michael Myers is out kind of creeping around watching Laurie Strode while she's in school. Is walking around the school where kids are. You'll have to go back and listen to my first two uh, podcasts with this. But now, in also before we move on, in the last episode I did where I was reading these scripts, uh, Dr. Loomis is aware that Michael Myers is in the area, and they go to see his old house. Him and one of the officers go to see his old house that he killed his sister in, and there was a dog that was partially eaten. So of course they knew Michael Myers had been in there, and he's in the neighborhood, and he's starting to spy on Laurie Strode and Annie, and the babysitters, or all these. Well, Laurie's the only one that ends up babysitting that night, but he's aware of where her friends are, and he's kind of in the process of stalking everybody. So anyway, so that's kind of where we ended off, and we're getting ready to um, move on here, but just want to make sure I get started on the right spot here. So here we go. But Dr. Loomis has told officers to keep their mouth shut, their ears open, their eyes open, and their mouth shut, and look out for Michael. But he's also a little nervous because there's going to be other kids out with similar masks that Michael Myers wears, and so they don't want to harm innocent bystanders. So, but we're now at the part where um Laurie Strode is at Tommy Doyle's house to babysit him, and so this is October 31st, at the Doyle house. Starting off here, so it says here, camera slowly tracks through the Doyle house. Oh, and by the way, I will discuss anything that doesn't match up with the scripts or anything like that, because along the way they had decided to change things in the movie that doesn't always line up with these scripts. So anything that doesn't match up, I will discuss those things. Um, so I'll compare the movie to the notes and let you know what the difference is between, what's going on in the movie and what these original scripts are. So, the cigar is starting off very nicely, nice white ash, nice even burn line, getting that natural sweetness of the tobacco. Getting a little spice still, getting some cedar, getting that coffee. So anyway, great stick so far. Construction's great. The draw is great. Nice oily wrapper, not too veiny, and the construction is just beautiful on this, and the draw is terrific on this. The aromas of the smoke, some nice cedar aromas, terrific also. Let's get into this. So again, Doyle House, October 31st at night. Camera slowly tracks through the Doyle house. It is a large home with a staircase that leads to the bedrooms upstairs. Through a doorway, we see a very modern kitchen. There is a dining room and living room with a big bay window that looks out into the street. Now, in the movie, they didn't show anything about the upstairs of this house. They didn't show anything but just the main floor of the house, the living room and the kitchen. Laurie sits with Tommy Doyle on the couch, reading him a story. Tommy has his Halloween costume on and a big bag of candy on the floor. And of course, they didn't show the candy on the floor in the scene either. Laurie says, "How now?" cried Arthur. She's reading a book to Tommy. "How now?" cried Arthur. Then, "No one may pass this way without a fight." That is so, answered the knight in a bold and haughty manner. "I don't like that story," Tommy says. Laurie says, "But King Arthur was always your favorite." Tommy pulls out a stack of comic books from underneath the couch, and he says, "Not anymore." "Why are they under there?" Laurie asks him. Tommy says, "Mom doesn't like me to have them." Laurie glances through the stack of comic books, and Laurie says, "Neutron Man, Laser Man, I can see why. Tarantula Man." Tommy says, "Laurie, what's the boogeyman?" The phone rings in the other room. Laurie goes to answer it. She picks up the receiver in the den. Laurie says, "Hello." Now in the Doyle kitchen, Annie stands making popcorn, the phone at her ear. "Annie, having fun? Never mind, I'm sure you are. I have big news for you." Let's see here. So it says, yeah, Annie is on the other line in the house that she's at babysitting, which I forgot. So yeah, Annie is babysitting as well. And then of course Laurie Strode's babysitting Tommy Doyle. Lindsay Walker, I believe, is the other girl's name, if I remember right. That Annie's babysitting. Anyway, says, "Annie, having fun? Never mind, I'm sure you are. I have big news for you." Lester, a large, ferocious-looking German Shepherd, trots happily into the kitchen, spies Annie, and walks over to her. He nudges her legs with his head. Annie, "Oops, hold on a minute." She turns and reaches for Lester, and certainly, "Hi, Lester," says Annie. Lester growls at her menacingly. Annie then says, Lindsay, into the phone. Let's see, "I'm about to be ripped apart by the family dog." Oh, okay, so Annie's saying Lindsay into the phone, calling out to her. And then she tells Laurie that "I'm about to be ripped apart by the family dog." Lindsay trots into the room. "Annie, get him out of here." Lindsay says, "Here, Lester." Let's see here. So yeah, the girl she's babysitting, her name is Lindsay. And Annie's asking Lindsay to get the dog out of the house. Immediately, Lester walks over to the back door. Lindsay opens the door and the dog trots out. Then Lindsay closes the back door and walks back into the living room. Annie into the phone. "I hate that dog. I'm the only person in the world he doesn't like." Lori then says into the phone, "What's this big news? What's this big news?" Annie says, "What would you say if I told you that you were going to the homecoming dance tomorrow night?" Intercut with Lori in the den. Lori says, "I'd say you must have the wrong number." Annie then says, "Well, I just walked in with Ben Tramer, and he got real excited when I told him how attracted you were to him." Lori says, "Annie, you didn't. Tell me you didn't." Annie says, "You guys will make a fabulous couple." Back to the Doyle living room. Tommy walks to the front window and looks out. Tommy's point of view into the street. A couple trick-or-treaters walk by. Behind them across the street stands the Shape, looking into the house. Out into the street to the Doyle house. Cameras behind the Shape. Looking into Doyle's house, we can see Lori talking on the phone. The Shape's head moves slightly, and we pan to see Tommy at the front room window looking out. Tommy moves away from the window, pan back to see him enter the den and pull on Lori's blouse. And then back to the Doyle house. Tommy says, Lori, into the phone. I'm so embarrassed I couldn't face him. Annie says, "You'll have to. He's calling you tomorrow to find out what time to pick you up." So, in the middle of this phone call with Annie and Laurie Strode, Tommy Doyle's noticing the Shape outside, and starting to panic a little bit, of course. And he says, "You'll have to. He's calling you tomorrow to find out what time to pick you up." Lori panicked. Annie, "Tommy, Lori, the boogeyman is outside. Look." Tommy runs to the window in the den and points. Lori walks over with the phone and looks. Lori's point of vision out into the street. The street is empty. Angle on Lori and angle back on Lori. Tommy. Lori into the phone. "Hold on." To Tommy, "There's nobody there. Tommy, go watch some TV." Tommy runs out of the den. And then back to the Doyle house living room. Tommy dashes up to the front window and looks out. Point of vision into the street. We see the man as he passes under a streetlight on his way toward the Wallace house. So then on to the Wallace house. Annie stands by the kitchen still making popcorn. Annie into the telephone says, "Look, it's simple. You like him. He likes you. All you need is a little push." Point of vision from outside kitchen window. The Shape stands close to the camera, watching Annie making popcorn. She puts the butter in the pan. Annie continuing, "It won't hurt you to go out with him, for God's sake." Annie starts to pour the butter over the popcorn, but instead pours it on herself. Annie continuing, "Shit, oh no, I gotta call you back. I just made a mess of myself. Nothing unusual." Now in the movie it says, "I just made a mess of myself. I gotta call you back." It doesn't say nothing. She doesn't say nothing unusual. She says, "I gotta call you back." And she hangs up the phone, just like it shows here. So Annie hangs up. She quickly takes off her blouse and blue jeans. She stands in the kitchen with only her panties on. She pulls a box of cornstarch out of the closet and sprinkles it onto the stains of butter. Angle on side of the house. The Shape moves closer to the kitchen window and knocks over a potted plant. On purpose, of course. It crashes noisily against the side of the house. Then back to the Wallace house. Annie is startled by the crash. She looks outside the window. A hanging plant swings in the wind. It bumps against the side of the house. Angle of Annie. She turns from the window and walks out of the kitchen. And then back to the Wallace house. The hanging plant, or still at the Wallace house, the hanging plant continues to whap against the house. A hand suddenly stops its motion. The Shape leans up close to the kitchen window, looking inside. Angle on the dog. From the darkness of the backyard, Lester springs forward into camera, snarling and barking viciously. Angle on the Shape with the dog. The Shape starts away. Let's see. The Shape darts away from the kitchen window. The dog snapping right after him. The Wallace house still. Annie listens to the growling of the dog. She turns to Lindsay in the living room and says, Annie says, "Lindsay, Lester's barking again and getting on my nerves again." Lindsay says, No, he's not. Suddenly the growling sound stops abruptly stops. Annie, never mind, he's found a hot date. Annie turns and walks into the living room at the Wallace house. We see the shape's legs a few feet from the house. I'm sorry, this is on the outside of the Wallace house. It says external, I'm sorry. So some scenes say internal, which means in the house, and then some scenes say external, which means outside. Um, I missed that on some of these spots that I was reading, so I apologize. Um, so anytime I say external, that means outside, internal means inside, again, like I said. So external, Wallace house, we see the shape's legs a few feet from the house. Next to him are Lester's legs, the dog, kicking and struggling a few feet above the ground. Off screen, the shape is strangling the dog in midair. Finally, the dog's legs stop moving and dangle lifelessly. The shape moves away from the house. Internal to the Doyle house in the living room at night. Lori and Tommy are sitting on the couch watching the horror-thon on TV. Tommy, what about the jack-o'-lantern? Lori says, after the movie. Tommy says, what about the rest of the comic books? And then Lori says, after the jack-o'-lantern. Tommy quietly says, what about the boogeyman? Lori says, there's no such thing. Tommy says, Richie said he was coming after me tonight. Tommy said, Richie is coming after me tonight. Lori says, do you believe everything that Richie tells you? Tommy said, no. Lori then with Tommy, Halloween night is when you play tricks on people and scare them. It's all make believe. Richie was just trying to scare you. Tommy, I saw the boogeyman. Tommy says, I saw the boogeyman. I saw him outside. Lori said there was no one out there. Tommy said there was. And then Lori says, what did he look like? Tommy says the boogeyman. This cigar is doing great. I've already dropped one ash, but it is doing great. It's building up some nice white ash again. Still tasting great. Everything about this cigar is doing very well. If this continues, it'll definitely be a great 10 out of 10 rating for me. So we'll see how it continues to do. Lori says we're not getting anywhere. All right. Look, Tommy, the boogeyman can only come out on Halloween night, right? Tommy says, right. And I'm here tonight and I won't let him get you. Promise? Lori says, I promise. In the movie Lori says, and I'm here tonight and I won't let anything ever happen to you. Instead of let him get you. Can we make the jack-o'-lantern now? Tommy asks. Lori holds out her hand. Tommy makes it. And together they walk into the kitchen. External passage to laundry room at the Wallace house at night. Annie walks through the passageway to the laundry room. She is wearing a nylon robe and carrying her clothes to be washed. The wind blows the robe open. So in the movie, their laundry area was you had to go outside and walk through the backyard on the sidewalk, and there was a little house or a little shed or something that had the washer and dryer in it and all the laundry equipment. So anyway, so she had to walk to that to get to where she needed to wash her clothes. Another angled passageway, which means the sidewalk to the laundry area. The shape stands behind a tree, watching Annie walk along the passageway. Internal to the laundry room, Annie walks into the dark laundry room. Almost immediately, the wind blows the door shut. Annie stands motionless for a moment, then begins looking for the light switch. Annie says, terrific. Angle on the door. The door creaks open. Behind the door, we see the outline of the shape standing there. Angle on Annie. Annie turns toward the slightly open door. Annie says, hello, and there's nothing but silence. Annie continuing, who's there? And nothing but silence still. The wind blows the door open a little wider. In the light from the main house, Annie sees the light switch. Quickly, she flicks on the switch and the laundry room lights. She flicks on the switch and the laundry room lights up. She glances outside the door. Let me read that again. So there's silence still. The wind blows the door open a little wider in the light from the main house. In the light from the main house, Annie sees the light switch, Quickly, she flicks on the switch and the laundry room lights up. Okay, she glances outside the door. There is no one there. Paul, is this one of your cheap tricks? Pause and disappointed, I guess not. So in the movie, the light does not work in the laundry room where she's doing her laundry. So that was a little different on the script compared to the scene. Yeah, Annie goes to turn the lights on for the laundry room, but the lights won't come on. So all you're seeing through the laundry room is the glow from the moon, actually. And maybe from the house too. Maybe I didn't watch that correctly, but from the scene that I've watched over and over, the only light she's getting in the laundry room is from the moon, is what I kind of thought. So, but yeah, so no lights in the laundry room. Here it says there is. There's no one out there. Annie says, Paul, is this one of your cheap tricks? Pausing disappointed, I guess not. She steps back inside and crosses to the washing machine. She opens the top and dumps her clothes inside. Annie says, no tricks for Annie tonight. Suddenly, a big gust of wind comes through the open window above her. The door slams shut. Annie hurries to the door and tries to open it. It won't open. Close shot of Annie. She tries to pull the door open behind her in the open window above the washing machine. We see the shape looking in. Lindsay, come out here. She's yelling from the laundry room to the house, hoping Lindsay hears her. So Lindsay Wallace is her name. I was trying to remember the last name. Lindsay Wallace is the 8-year-old daughter that Annie is watching at this time. So Lindsay Wallace, 8 years of old, with a pretty face, watches the horror marathon at top volume on TV. She doesn't hear Annie's call. Internal, back to the laundry room inside. Lindsay, I'm in the laundry room. The door's stuck. Annie turns and glances at the window above the washing machine. The shape is gone. She quickly crosses to the washing machine, climbs up on top of it, and starts out the window. Halfway through, she gets stuck. She tries to squirm her way back in, but it's hopeless. In the movie, the window was not above the washer, if I remember right. I thought she had to put a kind of stand on a little step stool to reach the window to where she could get out. But I don't remember her being on top of the washing machine. So I'll have to go back and check that out. If you guys know about that scene and how she was climbing out the window, make sure you guys let me know. Let me know what you remember of that. And he says, Lindsay, God damn it, help. From the house, Annie hears the phone ring. Annie continuing, Lindsay, answer the phone. It's Paul. Lindsay. Internal, back to the Wallace house. Lindsay still sits in front of the TV. She lets the phone ring away. Finally, she gets up and walks to the phone. Her eyes pivoted on the TV. She picks up the receiver. Lindsay says, hello. Paul says, hi, Lindsay. This is Paul. Is Annie there? Yes, she is, Lindsay says. Will you get her for me? Lindsay says she's washing her clothes. Paul says, well, go get her. Tell her it's me, okay? Lindsay says, okay, but Lindsay then ends up hanging up the phone. She ends up hanging up the phone and walks through the kitchen to the back door. She calls from the door. Annie, Paul's on the phone. 150-degree angle on Annie hanging outside the window. Lindsay opened the door. I'm locked in this laundry room. Outside the laundry room says, Lindsay crosses to the laundry room door. It is bolted from the outside. She lifts the bolts and looks inside the room, to the inside of the laundry room. Lindsay says, you locked yourself in. Annie says, I know, pull my legs, I'm stuck. Lindsay pulls on Annie's legs and she slides from the window onto the dryer. Which again, I don't recall her being on top of the washer or the dryer. Um, Lindsay, promise you won't tell anyone. Uh, and then internal back to the Wallace house. As Annie and Lindsay walk back into the house, the phone rings. Lindsay races across the room and picks it up. Lindsay says, "She was stuck in the window. She'll be right here." Lindsay sets down the receiver and walks out of the kitchen. Annie gives Lindsay a dirty look and picks it up. Annie says, "Hello, Paul. All right, cut it out. It can happen to anybody." Pause. "Yeah, but I've seen you stuck in other positions." Suddenly behind Annie, the shape walks through the hallway between the living room and the kitchen. She doesn't see it. Wow, and that's something I didn't see in the movie. I don't believe that was in the movie. Suddenly behind Annie, the shape walks through the hallway between the living room and the kitchen. She doesn't see it. Yeah, I don't remember that in the movie. I just remember her being on the phone. Of course, I'm gonna have to go back and watch that scene again, make sure I didn't miss anything there. Um, Annie continuing, "That's fantastic. When did they leave?" Let's see here. "Hello, Paul. All right, cut it out. It can happen to anyone." "Yeah, but I've seen you stuck in other positions." Suddenly behind Annie, the shade walks through the hallway between the living room and the kitchen. She doesn't see it. Annie continuing says, "That's fantastic. When did they leave?" Utterly fabulous. So why don't you just walk over? Oh, well, hold on a second. Let's see here. Well, I'm a little confused here. Seems like there's a part of a script missing here or something almost. Yeah, there's got to be something missing here. Um, because now she's talking to her other friend. Um, and I'm trying to remember her other friend's name here. Um, Hold on a second. I'm gonna have to find out here. Let's see here. Yeah, there's definitely something missing here. Shoot. Sorry about this, guys. Trying to find out here. Okay, so Linda. Linda's the other one that I'm now reading about here. Um, so now Annie's talking to Linda. Um, that's where in the movie. So now, yeah, so did I say Linda? Jeez. I man. Yeah, Linda. Linda. Okay. So Annie's talking to Linda now, at another house. Um, so Annie's telling Linda that if I remember right, they're not going to be to the house that they're hanging out in. Um, but I'm trying to remember exactly. Annie says, continuing on, "That's fantastic. When did they leave?" Linda says, "Utterly fabulous. So why don't you just walk over? My clothes are in the wash." I can't come now. Um, oh no, so I'm sorry, guys. I've got this mixed up with another scene. Uh, Paul is telling Annie that his parents are gone. I'm sorry. Because he's grounded. If you remember back, he's grounded for doing some stuff at school um, that he wasn't supposed to do. That he got caught by the principal, and then of course the parents found out. He got grounded. So Annie says that's fantastic because Paul's telling him that his parents are gone. She said, "When did they leave?" She says, "Utterly fabulous. So why don't you just walk over and let's see here." Says my clothes are in the wash. I can't come now. Um, oh, so Paul is asking. I'm sorry, guys. This is a little confusing. Paul is asking Annie to walk over to his house, and Annie's saying, "My clothes are in the wash. I can't come now." Um, Pausing the conversation, Annie says, "Shut up, jerk. I've got a robe on. That's all you think about." Pause. That's not true. I think about lots of things. Why don't we not stand here talking about it and get down to doing them? All right, see you in a few minutes. Annie hangs up the phone. She walks into the living room. Lindsay is back watching the TV horror-thon. Lindsay excitingly says, "I'm scared." Annie says, "Then why are you sitting here with all the lights off?" Lindsay says, "I don't know." "Well, come on, get your coat. We're going to pick up Paul." Lindsay says, "I don't want to." Annie says, "Look, Lindsay, I thought we understood each other." Lindsay says, "I want to stay here and watch this." Annie calculates a moment. "Annie, okay, if I can fix it so you can watch TV with Tommy Doyle, would you like that?" Lindsay's eyes light up and she says, "Yes." Annie says, "Well, come with me." External street at night. Annie and Lindsay come out of the Wallace house. Lindsay carries a bowl of popcorn. Annie has a coat over the negligee. They walk down the street to the Doyles. The wind blows strong and whips the negligee around Annie's lets, is what it says. Another angle street. As the girls make their way down the street, the shape steps into the glow of the streetlight and watches them. He pulls a large knife from his pocket. The blade glistens in the light. And then it goes on to the Doyle's house internal at night. Lori and Tommy are covered with pumpkin meat. When the doorbell rings, Tommy runs to answer it. He opens the door. Annie and Lindsay stand there. Tommy says, "Hi, come on in. We're making a jack-o'-lantern." Lindsay says, "I want to watch TV." Lindsay sees the TV on and runs it into the living room. Lindsay sees the TV on and runs into the living room. She takes off her coat, sits in front of the TV, and eats her popcorn. Lori comes from the kitchen. She glances at Annie's coat. Lori says, "Fancy." Annie says, "This has not been my night. My clothes are in the wash. I spilled butter down the front of me. I got stuck in a window. I'm glad you're here because I have something I want you to do. I want you to call up Ben Tramer." Or Lori says this, "I'm glad you're here because I have something I want you to do. I want you to call Ben Tramer and tell him you were just fooling around." And he says, "I can't." Lori says, "Yes, you can." And he says, "He went out drinking beer with Mike Godfrey and he won't be back until late. You'll have to call him tomorrow. Besides, I'm on my way to pick up Paul." Lori glances at Lindsay. Lori says, "Wait a minute here." Annie says, "If you watch her, I'll consider talking to Ben Tramer in the morning." Lori says, "Deal." "Hey, I thought Paul was grounded." And he says, "He was old." He said, she says he was. Old Jerko found a way to sneak out. "Listen, I'll call you in an hour or so." Uh, got a little bit of some ash on my phone here that I'm reading the script off of. Before Lori can say anything else, Annie rushes out the door. Lori closes the door and looks in at Tommy and Lindsay engrossed in their horror-thon. Lori says the old girl scout comes through again. External Wallace house garage at night. Annie hurries across the backyard and steps into the garage. She walks to her car. Annie sings to herself, "Oh, Paul, I give you all." She tries the door. It is locked. Continuing, "No keys, but please, my Paul." Quickly, she turns and walks out of the garage. It says, yeah, "No keys, but please, my Paul." Quickly, she turns and walks out of the garage. Internal to the Wallace house, Annie wanders through the empty house, looking for her purse. She finds it in the front room, takes out her brush and lipstick, and stands in front of the mirror, primping, "My Paul, I can no longer stall." She's singing this. She glances at her image in the mirror. Annie continuing, "Lucky thing, spilling butter on her clothes, but nobody will nobody let's see here. Annie continuing, "Lucky thing, spill butter on her clothes, but nobody will know," sings, except for Paul. Okay, so she's singing this. "Lucky thing, spill butter on her clothes, but nobody will know, except for Paul." Suddenly the phone rings. Quickly, Annie grabs it. "Annie, hello? Oh, hi, Dad." "No, just watching TV with Lindsay. Be careful about what?" "Well, if you won't tell me, how can I be careful?" Sure, I will. Bye, Dad." That was not in the scene, from Annie. She hangs up, grabs her purse, and rushes out the door. Back into the garage. Annie walks into the garage over to her car and opens the door. It's now unlocked, but Annie doesn't notice that. Which I thought was really odd that she went back to get her keys and came back and didn't even realize the door was unlocked to the car when it was in the beginning. Annie slides in and inserts the key into the ignition. The car starts. Annie glances at the car door lock. Suddenly she remembers it was locked. Okay, so she now remembers. She stares at it puzzled, and an instant later a man sits in the back seat. He wears a Halloween mask made of rubber with grotesque features of a man. He reaches forward and grabs her. Annie screams. She lurches for the door. The man puts one hand over her mouth and brings a huge butcher knife up to her throat. And in that scene, it really wasn't the lock she was staring. I mean, I guess she kind of was, but she was more wondering why the windows were all frosted up, or it wasn't really frost, but it was like someone had been, of course Michael had been breathing in the car, so, and it was chilly out at night, so the windows were kind of fogged over in the car. And that's what, in the scene, she was wiping her finger on the window and looking at her finger, wondering why everything was so moist, or why the windows were like this, and how that could be, how that could be in the car. So that's what she was pretty focused on, more than the car being unlocked, I thought. So let's see here. So in the garage, angle on the car from outside the car, we see the struggle inside. Annie's anguished face presses against the streamed window. Her screams were muffled by the closed car. Suddenly, the struggle stops. Annie's face slides down the car window, leaving a track in the wet surface. Then slowly the track and the glass steams over again. So it's funny how they mentioned the door lock that she was trying to figure out. But then it jumps to where it talks about the window being fogged over and everything, or steamed up. So I just thought that was kind of interesting how they did that. The script on that. So suddenly the struggle stops. Annie's face slides down the car window, leaving a track in the wet surface of the window. Then slowly the track on the glass steams over again. Internal Doyle house at night. Music from Invasion of Body Snatchers fills the room. Lindsay and Tommy are riveted to the screen. Tommy glances at Lindsay and slowly sneaks away from the couch. He jumps to a window and ducks behind a curtain. Tommy from behind the curtain says, Lindsay, Lindsay. Lindsay turns around and looks for Tommy. Lindsay says, where are you? No answer. Lindsay gets up from the couch to search for Tommy. Behind the curtain, Tommy hides, preparing to jump out and to scare Lindsay. For a moment, he glances out the window. Tommy's point of view, Wallace backyard. The figure of a man carries out what seems to be a body across the Wallace's backyard. And that's funny because in the movie, it does show Michael carrying Annie's body, but it shows him from the front, then going to the side of the house. So you can see the street light and the house light kind of shining on Michael in front of the house as he's walking in front, but then he's going to the side of the house as well. So I thought that was another interesting. It's interesting they said the backyard. So anyway, I'm giving the cigar one relight. It's been doing very well. It really has. The cigar, the burn line's been great. The construction's been great. I think by me talking maybe and not puffing enough is probably why it went out. But anyway, but doing really good. Taste notes are staying pretty consistent. Country I'm sorry, the taste notes are staying pretty consistent. And I don't know, those guys over in the Dominican Republic definitely knew what they were doing on this cigar. Really good cigar. It's more medium strength for me. It's not really full strength. It's more medium strength. I really think a beginner could really smoke this cigar. It is a Churchill, so there's a lot more tobacco to smoke through, but I think if a beginner took their time with this, and had maybe something to drink and something to eat along with it, maybe they would be okay with this. But it's really not feeling like a full strength cigar, more medium strength. But it's still doing great. That burn line is still razor sharp. It's building up some great white ash again already. Construction's doing great. The draw is doing great. It's just a beautiful, beautiful cigar. It really is. Really gorgeous cigar. So anyway, it says the figure of a man carries what seems to be a body across the Wallace's backyard. Back into the Doyle house, Tommy screams and jumps out from the curtain, scaring the hell out of Lindsay, who also screams and begins crying. Tommy, there he is, there he is, there's the boogeyman. Lori rushes in from the kitchen, finding the children in tears. Lori, what's wrong? Lori says, what's wrong? Tommy points out the window. Tommy says, I saw him again. He's over at the Lindsay's house, the boogeyman. At this, Lindsay begins to cry even louder. Lori bends down to comfort her. Lori says, Tommy, stop it. You're scaring Lindsay. Tommy says, I saw him. Lori says, I said, stop it. There's no boogeyman. There's nothing out there. If you don't stop all this, I'm turning off the TV and you go to bed. Tommy turns away from Lori and Lindsay and walks over to the couch in front of the TV set. Almost instantly, Lindsay stops crying and follows him. Tommy says, nobody believes me. Lindsay says, I believe you, Tommy. Lindsay sits up next to Tommy and hugs him. Lori shakes her head and walks back into the kitchen. External, Myers' house at night. The old Myers' house looks ominous and foreboding, silhouetted against the dark. Wishing trees. Let's see here. Wishing trees against the dark. Camera tracks behind the hedge to where Loomis sits waiting. Suddenly there are noises from the street. Loomis parts the hedge in front of him and stares. Loomis's point of vision into the street. Three boys, Keith, Richie, and Lonnie, from the playground creep up to the edge of the sidewalk in front of the old house. They stare fearfully at the dark, tomb-like structure. Lonnie says, I'm not afraid. Richie says, bullshit. Ronnie says, I'm not. Then go in. For a moment, Lonnie hesitates and slowly moves up through the front gate up toward the porch. Angle on Loomis. He watches the young boys walk toward the house, unsure whether he should interfere or just watch. I don't remember a gate being in front of the Myers house. Loomis's point of view to the old house in the street. Lonnie makes it to the front porch and tentatively steps up to the door. He glances back to his friends in the street. Loomis's point of view moves to the street and then says, Richie says chicken. Keith says, go on, Lonnie. Then Loomis's point of view moves back to Lonnie at the front door. The boy turns to the open door. He's scared out of his mind. Lonnie, the boy turns to open the door. He's scared out of his mind. Angle on Loomis. Loomis quietly stands up behind the hedge. Loomis says, Lonnie, kind of in a whisper, but loud enough to where they can hear him, to where the kids can hear. So Loomis says, Lonnie. Loomis's point of vision to the old house. Lonnie spins around and stares in horror at the stalking hedge. Angle on Loomis. Loomis says, get your ass away from there. Loomis's point of view to the old house from the street. Moving like the wind, Lonnie barrels off the porch and races back to his friends. The three boys hurtle off down the back street in utter terror, or down the dark street in utter terror. Angle on Loomis, he watches them race away, smiling to himself. Suddenly, two hands enter frame and grab Loomis's shoulders. Loomis jumps and spins around. Standing there is Brackett, Officer Brackett. Loomis says, Jesus. Brackett says, you all right? Loomis says, sure. Brackett says, nothing's going on, just kids playing pranks, trick or treating, parking, getting high. I have the feeling you're way off on this. Loomis says, you have the wrong feeling. Brackett says, you're not coming up with much to prove me wrong. Loomis says, exactly, what do you need? Brackett says, well, it's going to take more than fancy talk to keep me up all night, creeping around these bushes. Loomis says, I watched him for 15 years sitting in a room, staring at a wall, not seeing the wall, seeing past it, seeing this night. He's waited for it, inhumanly patient, hour after hour, day after day, waiting for some silent, invisible alarm to trigger him. Death has arrived in your little town, Sheriff. You can ignore it or you can help me stop it. Brackett says, more fancy talk. You want to know what Haddonfield is? Families, children, all lined up in rows, up and down these streets. You're telling me they're lined up for a slaughterhouse? Loomis says they could be. Brackett says, I'll stay out with you tonight, doctor. Just on that chance that you're right. And if you are right, damn you for letting him out. Brackett turns and walks back back to the street. Loomis watches him for several moments. External cut back to Wallace's house at night. The house is quiet, dark. The lights are all out. Annie's car is parked in the garage. A car pulls up in front of the house and parks. Its lights flick off. The sound of laughter comes from inside. Internal to the car at night. Bob Sims, a good-looking 17-year-old, pops open a can of beer. Next to him, Lydia guzzles hers. They embrace. Linda says, now first we'll talk a little, then Annie will distract Lindsay and sneak quietly up the stairs to the first bedroom on the left. Got it? Bob says, okay, first I rip your clothes off. Bob grabs Linda and starts giggling. The can of beer falls over on the front seat. Linda says, you idiot. And then Bob says, you rip my clothes off. Then we rip Lindsay's clothes off. I think we've got it. Or I think I've got it. Linda says, totally. External Wallace house. Bob opens the door and together they fall out onto the ground. Bob picks Linda up and carries her up to the front door. Linda, Bob, put me down. This is totally silly. Linda squirms in Bob's arms as he sets her down. Her foot accidentally hits the front door and it swings open. Linda and Bob both stop. Linda says, Annie, we're here. Bob and Linda enter the house. Internal Wallace house at night. The living room is empty. The lights are off. Linda and Bob enter the house and begin turning on the lights. I wonder where they went. Linda says Anthony probably took Lindsay out or something. Let's look for a note. Linda never did turn on any lights in the movie, just so you guys know. Bob walks over to Linda. Bob says, let's don't. And he probably took Lindsay out or something. Let's look for a note. Bob walks over to Linda. Bob says, let's don't. They embrace. Bob pulls Linda over to the couch and turns out the light. They kiss. A shadow comes over them. They continue kissing and unaware of the shape of the man on the stairway watching. Internal to the Doyle house at night. The house is totally black inside. The only sound is the music score from The Thing. Suddenly, the sound of laughter is heard from the kitchen. Then an orange light floats through the room. As it gets closer, we see Laurie is carrying a jack-o'-lantern with a candle illuminating from the center of the pumpkin. Behind Laurie is Tommy and Lindsay making scary noises. To see the procession continues through the house. Tommy says, "Ooh, he's gonna get you. He's gonna get you." Lindsay says, "No, he's not." Laurie says, "Nobody's gonna get anybody. Now stop scaring each other." The procession continues to the front window. Laurie places the jack-o'-lantern on the windowsill. She looks down the street toward the Wallaces. Laurie point of view to the Wallace house. Laurie sees Bob's car parked in front of the house. Angle on Laurie. Laurie smiles to herself. Laurie, everybody has a good time. Everybody has a good time tonight. Okay, kids, what do you want to do now? Lindsay says, let's make popcorn or make more popcorn. Laurie says, you've had enough. Why don't we sit down and watch the rest of the movie? Laurie sits down on the couch and sighs. Lindsay and Tommy cuddle up with her on each side. The phone rings. Laurie gets up to answer it. Laurie says, hello. Internal to the house at night. Linda sits on the couch in the dark. Her hair and clothes are messed up. Bob lies on the couch. Let's see. Laurie, hello. Internal house at night. Linda sits on the couch in the dark. Her hair and clothes are messed up. Bobby lies on the couch, his head on her lap. Hi, Laurie, what's up? Laurie says nothing. I was just sitting down for the first time tonight. Linda says, is Annie around? Laurie says, no, I thought she'd be home by now. She went to pick up Paul. Linda says, well, she's totally not here. Laurie says they probably stopped off somewhere. Have her call me when she gets back. I've got Lindsay here and I want to know what time to put her to bed. Linda says, okay, later. Laurie, have a good time. Linda hangs up the phone and grins. And Linda says, we sure will. Linda grabs Bob's hand and stands up. Linda continuing, Lindsay is gone for the night. Bob grins. Now that's wonderful, Bob says. Linda pulls Bob up from the couch and they walk quickly up the stairs. Internal to the Doyle house at night. Laurie stands by the telephone. She walks to the window and glances out. Laurie's point of vision to the Wallace house. It is dark. Angle on Laurie. Laurie shrugs, turns away from the window, and walks back to Tommy and Lindsay sitting on the couch. Cut to the Wallace's bedroom at night, or to the Wallace bedroom at night. Sounds of lovemaking come from the bed. The only light is a candle illuminating the sheets as they move slowly up and down from side to side. Empty beer cans leave a trail from the door to the bed. So the only light they're getting is from the pumpkin that's on the nightstand next to him. The moans of Linda begin increasing. They get louder, building to a crescendo. The phone rings. The lovemaking suddenly stops. Linda says, shit, not again. Linda rises up on one arm. The sheets fall away from her, showing a very beautiful young body. Her hair is a mess, but she is frustrated. The phone continues to ring. Bob says, I can't help it. It just keeps ringing. Linda says, I can't keep you interested. Bob says, should we answer it? Bob opens a fresh can of beer. He chugs it down. Linda says, that's great. Now you'll be too drunk too. Bob says, just answer the damn phone. Linda says, I can't. What if it's the Wallaces? We'd get Annie in trouble. The phone stops ringing and Bobby takes it off the hook. Linda reaches over and kisses Bob behind the ears. She slowly moves around his ear with her tongue. Bob grabs Linda and pushes her down on the bed. Camera moves back from the bed as their lovemaking continues back through the bedroom doorway. Standing there in the darkness is the shape, watching them. Finally, Bob and Linda climax. Bob rolls off Linda. She lights a cigarette and hands it to Bob, then lights one for herself. Linda says, fantastic. Totally. Bob says, yeah. Linda says, want a beer? Bob says, yeah. Is that all you have to say? Bob says, yeah, again. Linda says, go get me a beer. I thought you were going to get one for me. Linda says, yeah. Bob gets out of bed, pulls his jeans on. He looks for his glasses. He finds them and puts them on. Bob says, I'll be right back. Don't get dressed. Bob leans over and kisses Linda. He leaves. Linda leans back onto the pillow. She smiles to herself. Back to the Wallace kitchen. To the Wallace kitchen. Bob comes through the swinging doors. He opens the refrigerator and takes out 2 beers. He looks around the kitchen. He opens some cupboards and takes out a bag of potato chips and another cupboard. He finds a can of peanuts. Bob gathers the food and beer into his arms. He shuts out the light with his elbow. He turns to leave the doors and wham, he steps into a chair, knocking him backwards. The beer falls on the floor along with the chips and the peanuts. Bob leans down to pick them up. Bob says, God damn it. Another angle. Bob has his head down, intent on cleaning up the mess. There's a slam from across the kitchen. Bob looks up. Bob's point of vision to the door. The back door of the kitchen slowly swings open as if it has been slammed shut and the bolts didn't catch. It squeaks on its hinges as it swings back and forth. Back into the kitchen. Slowly, Bob gets to his feet and walks over to the door. Bob says, Annie, Paul. He stops to the door and looks inside. Bob's point of vision backyard. The yard is empty. Just the wind blowing the trees. Angle on Bob. He turns from the door. There is a squeak from one of the 2 closet doors by the kitchen counter. Bob freezes, staring at the 2 doors. Bob says, Linda, you asshole. He walks to one of the doors and opens it. Nothing inside. Bob continuing, all right, Linda, come on out. He steps to the door outside and opens it. Right behind the door stands the shape, wearing the rubber mask. He steps out and grabs Bob around the neck in an instantaneous lunge. Bob tries to jump away, but the shape has a firm hold on his neck. Bob coughs and gags from the pressure. Then the shape lifts Bob up off the floor. Angle onto Bob's feet. Bob's feet leave the floor. Angle on Bob's face. He makes a guttural sound deep in his throat as the shape's hand closes tightly around his windpipe. Angle on shape. Behind the mask are 2 burning eyes. The shape moves forward. Angle on the wall, still holding him up with one hand. The shape slams Bob against the wall, holding him up several feet off the floor. Bob struggles to get free. The shape lifts his other hand. It holds the butcher knife. The shape drives the knife deeply into Bob's chest. The shape drives the knife deeply into Bob's chest with a slamming thud. The other end of the knife struck through the wall. Then the shape steps away. Bob hangs there, impaled on the wall, eyes still open in horror and dead. Let's see here. Back into the Wallace bedroom. Linda lounges on the bed smoking another cigarette. She hears Bob enter the room but doesn't look up. Then Linda says, where's my beer? No answer. Linda turns around and looks. Another angle, Linda's point of vision. The shape stands in the doorway. He is covered with a sheet like a ghost. He wears Bob's glasses. Linda continuing, cute, Bob, real cute. The ghost doesn't answer. Another angle, Linda and the ghost. Then Linda looks at the ghost. She slides the sheets down from her body. Linda continuing, come here, you fool. The ghost doesn't answer. He continues to stare at Linda. Can I get your ghost, Bob? Linda laughs at her own joke and stops when she sees the ghost is motionless. Linda continuing, all right, so where's the beer? Nothing from the ghost, just stands there. Linda continuing, well, answer me. Okay, don't answer me. Boy, are you weird. Linda gets out of bed. She is nude and looks beautiful and sensuous in the candlelight. She walks over to the phone. Linda continuing, well, I'm gonna call Lori. I want to know where Annie and Paul are. This isn't going anywhere. Um, she also in this scene, um, oh, let's see here. Maybe I missed that. Linda and the ghost. Linda looks at the ghost. She slides the sheets down from her body. But instead of saying, come here, you fool, the ghost doesn't where Michael don't answer. She says, do you see anything you like? Instead, is what she said, instead of come here, you fool. So anyway, so they did change that up. Let's see. Linda sits down on a chair by the telephone in the BG. Not sure what BG stands for. Anyway, Linda sits down in a chair by the telephone. The ghost stands in the doorway. She starts to dial the phone. The ghost starts walking towards her. Internal Doyle house at night. The house is very quiet. The kids are asleep. Lori's sitting on the couch, knitting. The phone rings. Lori says, finally. Lori crosses to answer the phone. Internal Wallace bedroom. So we're back to the bedroom again. Linda holds the phone to her ear. The ghost walks up slowly behind her. He raises his hands to grab her. Lori answers the phone, and Lori says, hello. Back to the Wallace bedroom. Linda hears Lori's hello. As the ghost grabs the phone, he clamps one hand over Lydia's mouth. She squirms and writhes. He takes the telephone cord and wraps it around her neck. Back to the Doyle house. Lori says hello. Lori hears squeals and rustling sounds across the phone. Lori continuing, all right, Annie, I've heard your famous chewing. Now I get your famous squeals. Lori continues to hear weird sounds. Lori continuing, Annie. Back to the Wallace bedroom. Linda tries to fight off the ghost. He wraps the cord around the neck. He pulls tight. Linda reaches up and pulls on the sheet. It slides off of the man to reveal the grotesque Halloween mask. Linda gasps and tries to scream. The man pulls the cord tighter. Her face turns blue. She opens her mouth, trying to get air, then slowly slumps forward and remains motionless. Linda is dead. The shape picks up the receiver and puts it up to his ear. Back to the Doyle house, Engel and Lori. Lori is saying, Annie, are you all right? Silence over the phone. Lori continuing, are you fooling around again? Silence. I'll kill you if this is a joke. More silence. Lori continuing, Annie. Suddenly the phone goes dead. Lori stares at the receiver, then hangs up. She crosses to the window and looks out towards the Wallace house. Lori's point of view of the Wallace house. The street is quiet, dark, and windy. Bob's car is parked in front of the Wallace house. Suddenly, a light goes on in the bedroom. Angela and Lori, she stares at the house, puzzled. Lori's point of view of Wallace house. Then the light goes off. So suddenly, a light goes on in the bedroom at the Wallace house. And then she stares at the house, puzzled. Then the light goes off. Back to the Doyle house. Lori moves from the window back to the telephone and dials Annie's number. We hear the phone ringing on the other end. Back to the Wallace house bedroom. Camera slowly tracks through the darkened bedroom of the Wallace house. There is no sign of struggle. The room is empty. The phone rings away. At the Doyle house, Lori finally hangs up the phone. She stands for a moment, considering it, then turns and walks upstairs. The Doyle bedroom. Lori opens the door to the bedroom. Tommy and Lindsay are sound asleep on the bed. She looks at them a moment and closes the door behind her. So now the Doyle house living room. Lori comes back downstairs. She takes the key out of her purse and again steps to the window. Lori's point of view to the Wallace house, dark and silent. Angle on Lori. She steps to the front door. External Myers house at night. So we're back to the Myers house now. Loomis sits in silence behind the hedge, watching the Myers house. Frustrated, he gets up and walks to the street. For a moment, he glances back at the Myers house, then starts down the quiet residential street. Loomis's point of vision of the street, the station wagon. It is empty except for a station wagon parked several blocks away. Angle on Loomis. He turns away from the street, then a thought strikes him. He looks again back onto the street at the station wagon. The lone car is Loomis's station wagon. Yeah, so anyway, so he now realizes that Michael is definitely in the neighborhood. And so Dr. Loomis is definitely panicking at this point. Not sure what to do now because not sure where to, where to look or what to do. I think he's hoping that, in some way Michael Myers will just kind of walk out in front of him somewhere and they'll get him, taken care of once and for all at that moment. But of course, that's not the case. Dr. Loomis is seeing the car, looking around, frightened, because now he realizes that Michael's in the area and need to do what they need to do to find him. He's not certain of it. Slowly, Loomis starts walking around the street toward the station wagon. Let's see here. Angle on Loomis. He's not certain of it. Slowly, Loomis starts walking down the street toward the station wagon. I can't imagine what's going on in Dr. Loomis's mind, seeing his car that Michael had stolen, wondering where Michael would be at this point. So external street at night, Lori locks the Doyle house and walks away out into the street. The wind whips her clothes and hair. Lori's point of vision, Wallace house, moving shot toward the Wallace house, dark and ominous, moving shot, Lori. She moves down the street, shivering in the chill wind. She puts the key to the Doyle's house in her pocket. Lori's point of vision, the Wallace house, moving shot. Car turns the corner and drives past the Wallace house, casting a strange shadowy pattern across the front of the house. Huh. Not sure that I don't remember that being in the scene, a car driving by. Moving shot, Lori, she picks up her speed now on the sidewalk. Lori's point of vision, Wallace house, moving shot. The house looms closer and closer. External street at night, tracking shot with Loomis as he walks up the street. Loomis point of vision, station wagon. The station wagon moves closer. Moving shot to Loomis. He recognizes it and races forward. Loomis's point of vision, station wagon. Camera tracks in to the station wagon, right up to the state emblem. Let's see. Emblazoned on the side. Camera tracks into the station wagon, right up to the state emblazoned on the side. I had a hard time pronouncing that word. External Wallace house at night. Camera moves up to the front of the Wallace house. Lori walks up to the front porch. She stands there a moment, listening as if to hear some sound of life from inside. She knocks on the door and rings the doorbell. She waits, but nothing but silence. She steps off the porch and walks around the side of the house, camera tracking with her. She moves to the garage and peeks inside. There's Annie's car. Lori thinks for a moment, then looks to the street. Lori's point of vision, Bob's car. Bob's car sits there on the street. Angle on Lori. She turns and walks through the breezeway. between the house and the garage, around the back door. The kitchen door is ajar, swinging back and forth in the wind. Lori pulls open the door and steps into the house. Internal Wallace kitchen. The kitchen is dark. Lori stands there a moment staring into the blackness. Lori says, Annie? No answer. Lori continuing, Bob, Linda, Annie? No one answers. Lori searches for the wall light. She flips it and nothing happens. She looks again into the darkness. Lori continuing, hello. Nothing. Lori moves forward into the house, camera tracking with her. Lori walks into the living room. She stops to let her eyes get accustomed to the almost total darkness. She reaches for a nearby lamp, trips over the cord. The lamp clunks onto the floor. Lori says, shit. Suddenly there is a crashing sound from upstairs. Lori spins around and stares up the dark staircase. Another squeak from above. Lori smiles. Lori continuing, all right, meatheads, the joke is over, but silent still. Lori continuing, come on, Annie, enough. Another sound from upstairs, a dragging across the floor. I do remember hearing that in the movie. Lori moves to the head of the staircase. The dragging sound stops abruptly, silence. Lori continuing, this has most definitely stopped being funny now. Cut it out. A scraping sound, then silence. Lori continuing, you'll be sorry. Slowly, Lori starts up the staircase. Back into the street at night. Loomis stands by his car, glancing up and down the empty street. Finally, he makes up his mind and starts moving down the street, almost running, looking back and forth at the rows of houses on either side for something out of place. Cut to the Wallace house at night, slowly tracking up the staircase. Moving shot of Lori. As she slowly moves up the stairs, she reaches the top and stops. Lori's point of view, second floor hallway. It is totally dark. At the end of the hall is the bedroom door. From around the edges of the door is the faintest orange glow. Angle on Lori. She moves for the door. Camera tracking with her. Lori's point of view to the door. She reaches the door. Her hand reaches out and touches it. The door swings open. Angle on Lori. She moves forward toward the bed. Lori's point of vision. Camera moves forward. There on the bed is Annie. Her face is a chalky white, and there is a huge red gash across her throat. At the head of the bed is Judith Meyer's tombstone. Angle on Lori. She stares at the bed and then screams at the top of her lungs. Just watching that scene when Lori opens that door and sees Annie on the bed, and that tombstone behind her. That is quite the scene. Along with that scene where Michael Myers is dressed up as the ghost, and goes into where Linda's at and kills her, and where he stands in the doorway not responding to anything that Linda says to her. That's probably the two creepiest scenes I think in this movie. So let's see. She stares at the bed and then screams at the top of her lungs. Suddenly something drops down at her from above. Lori jumps back to the door. Lori's point of vision to Bob, strung up to the light fixture on the ceiling. Dangling there in the middle of the room is Bob, eyes open and staring. That wasn't in the movie. Lori backed up against the wall when she was screaming about Annie being on the bed dead. And a door, like a compartment door opens, or like a closet door. And that's where she sees, I think it was a closet, but that's where Bob comes swinging down, upside down, for whatever reason. His eyes are open, but he wasn't hanging from the ceiling, dangling in the middle of the room. So not that I know of. I remember him swinging down out of, I thought which was a closet. So anyway, I'll have to go back and watch that scene again, but I'm pretty sure I'm 99% right on that. Let's see here. But yeah, I don't remember being strung up to a light fixture, which is Bob I'm talking about, which is Linda's boyfriend. Yeah, I don't remember that. Lori backs out of the bedroom. Her mouth is open in speechless horror. Suddenly, a door next to her slowly opens. There is Linda standing there, propped up by a chair. Yeah, that wasn't in the original Halloween either. A closet, like a compartment door opens, and you can see Linda inside of it. Um, just you can just see the top of her body and her head. Um, there's Linda standing there, propped up by a chair, staring at her with glazed jet eyes. Yeah, definitely was not in the movie like that. So they really did change a lot of things with the scenes along the way after they had written these scripts, obviously. Angela and Lori, the corner lighting effect. Lori shrinks back into a dark corner. She can only stare in horror at the sight of her friend. Suddenly, we are aware of something there in the dark corner. It is almost as if our eyes have suddenly begun to adjust to the darkness, and we see the outline of a man standing right behind her. The outline becomes more and more clear. It is the shape, wearing the mask and butcher knife in the hand, or in his hand, gleaming right behind Lori. Lori suddenly moves away from the corner. The shape lunges out at her. Close shot of Lori's back and her hand of Michael. The hand grasps a piece of Lori's blouse and rips it. Um, Now in that scene, he swung the knife at her like this, and the knife caught her blouse and cut her, and ripped the blouse, of course. Uh, Lori screams and spins around, angle on the shape. He stands there holding up the piece of material. Yeah, he wasn't holding any material in his hand. He's just holding his knife. Then raises the butcher knife and moves for her. Angle on Lori. Camera moves with her as she backs away, screaming at the top of her lungs. Angle back on the shape. He lunges at her suddenly with his knife. And on Lori, top of staircase, the knife slices across her arm, ripping her flesh. Lori suddenly jumps backward, raising her arm instinctively. Angle on railing. Lori bumps back into the railing. Um, so maybe that's what I'm thinking of. I don't know, but I guess I don't remember Michael grabbing at her blouse and ripping it and holding a piece of the clothing in his hand. If I'm wrong, you guys let me know if you remember that scene. Um, I remember, and maybe actually Michael had swung his knife at her but missed, and then got her again, and before she well, I can't tell you what happens. I'll have to read it. When she was screaming, and he lunges at her with his knife, and then says the knife sliced across her arm, ripping her flesh. But yeah, I could have swore that she got cut. She got cut on her shoulder as well, and then I guess I remember her getting cut on the shoulder and her screaming at the same time and spinning around, and lunging back into the railing of the stairway. And then it says he lunges again with the knife. She leaps backward to avoid the blade and slips over the edge of the railing. I don't remember being cut twice. I remember being cut once on the shoulder with her blouse. And when he snuck up behind her and cut her, she spun around screaming, and then that's when she fell over the staircase, over the railing. I don't remember her being, I don't remember her clothes being ripped and then her getting cut also. I just remember the one cut across her arm and she spun around and fell over the railing. So, Lori's point of view, camera plunges down from the second floor and slams into the floor. Angle on Lori, she hits the floor and rolls over, holding her leg painfully. Then she looks up to the staircase. The shape moves to the top of the staircase and starts down towards her. She pulls herself up off the floor and hobbles into the living room. Angle on the staircase, the shape races down the stairs. She moves for the kitchen. She trips on the fallen lamps and falls to the floor. Angle on the shape steps into the living room, knife raised. Angle on Lori, kitchen. She crawls to the kitchen, rolls inside, and slams the kitchen door behind her. In a flash, she leaps up and clicks the lock. There's a pounding on the door from the other side. Lori slowly climbs to her feet and limps towards the back door. Suddenly, the kitchen door explodes. In the middle of it breaking apart, the shape reaches through, groping for the lock. Lori reaches to the back door. Angle on the door, her hand tries the door, it is locked, it is key locked. Angle on Lori, desperately she tries the door, glancing behind her. Angle on the shape. The shape's hand reaches for the lock. She steps back from the door into the kitchen. She sees the kitchen window over the sink. She hobbles to the sink, climbs on it, and grabs the window with a heave. She opens it halfway. Angle on the shape. The shape's hand grabs the lock and clicks it open. Angle on Lori kitchen window. She can only get it 3/4 open. Head first, she crawls through. No, so it says she crawls through the window. In this scene, there are some glass doors, like patio doors almost, and there's a rake on the other side that's leaned up against the glass, against the lock, or against the door handle, causing that door to not open. And she breaks that glass with her hand, gets the rake moved away, turns the handle on the outside, and goes through the door and out. She does not go through a window. So they really changed that scene a lot. Yeah, so she does not crawl through the window. She breaks open the glass doors that lead outside, pushes the breakaway that's held against the doors, and then she turns the doorknob from the outside and opens the door and runs out. So the shape grabs at Lori's legs as they disappear through the sill. So that did not happen. Lori picks herself up from the ground and runs as fast as she can, limping across the backyard, camera moving with her. She passes the driveway and scurries into the neighbor's backyard, up the back door of the house. She pounds furiously on the door. Lori screaming, "Help me, help me." She looks behind her. Lori's point of vision, Wallace house. No sign of the shape. The house is dark and silent. Angle on Lori. The back porch light comes on. Lori continues to pound on the door. Lori's point of vision to the door. Through the glass in the back door, we see an old woman dressed in a nightgown approach. "Please help me, call the police, please." Call the police while she's screaming. The old woman stares at her suspiciously for a moment, then turns from the door and walks away, turns the light out also. Oh yeah, the porch light goes out. No, please open the door. She turns around and looks back. Lori's point of vision to the Wallace house. Nothing, no sign of the shape. Angle on Lori. She hobbles off the back porch and runs across the yard to the street. Camera moves with her as she limps along. Now in the movie, it looks like it's the front porch of the house, not the back of the house, where she was trying to get the woman to open the door. Lori rushes up to the front door. She reaches in her pocket. Let's see. Camera moves with her as she limps along back to the Doyle's house. Lori rushes up to the front door. She reaches in her pocket for the key and drops it on the porch. She bends down and scrambles for it. She looks back towards the street. The street is empty. The wind wishes the trees. Leaves sprinkled down. Lori gropes around for the key. It lies over a crack in the wooden porch. She reaches for it, but her finger nudges the key between the crack down out of sight. Now in that scene, it showed her trying to find the keys and trying to get the keys out of her pocket. Couldn't find them. And that's when she was screaming on the door for Tommy to open the door. But it didn't show anything about the keys falling down into the crack of the porch. It didn't show anything like that. Lori screams with frustration and glances back at the street. Lori's point of vision to the street. The shape walks slowly down the middle of the street, right towards her. Angle on Lori. Lori begins to bang on the front door. Lori, Tommy, open the door. She grabs a planter on the porch, steps back and hurls it up at the upstairs window, which is correct. The planter smashes against the window. A light goes on. Tommy appears half asleep at the window. "Who is it?" Says Tommy. Angle on Lori. "Tommy, let me in." She looks back at the street. Lori's point of vision to the street. The street is empty. The shape is gone. She stands there breathlessly, her eyes burning in the darkness. Finally, the door opens. Tommy stands there in his pajamas. Lori leaps inside and slams the door. Lori bolts the door from the inside. Now that's yeah, different than what the movie shows too. Because the whole time Lori's trying to get into the house and Tommy Doyle's coming downstairs as slow as he possibly could. He finally gets downstairs, opens the door, and Lori gets in there, locks the door. But the whole time she's trying to get inside the house, she keeps looking back, and she sees Michael continuing to walk closer to her. He doesn't disappear at all. He continues to walk towards her in that scene. So they really changed that part too a lot. Um, Lori leaps inside this and slams the door. Lori bolts the door from the inside. Lori says to Tommy, I want you to go back upstairs. Tommy says, what is it, Lori? Lori says, be quiet, get Lindsay and get into the bedroom and lock the door. Tommy says, I'm scared. Lori says, do what I say now. Tommy, it's the boogeyman, isn't it? Lori says, hurry. Tommy turns and runs upstairs crying. Lori moves from the door to the telephone. She picks it up, dials a number, and waits. Then suddenly she reacts. The phone is dead, no dial tone. She puts down the phone and stands very still. There is a slight breeze blowing her hair slowly. Lori moves around to the couch. Lori's point of vision to the kitchen. From the living room where we see into the kitchen, the back door is open. Angle and Lori. Lori doesn't move. She begins crying softly, her eyes wide with fear. Lori says, please stop, please. Silence, no movement anywhere in the house. Slowly, Lori sinks down to her knees by the couch. Close shot of knitting needles. Her hand brushes against the knitting needles, protruding from her tote bag. Angle and Lori on the couch. She reacts to the feel of the knitting needles and pulls one out. It is long and deadly sharp. She stares at it. Suddenly, the shape leaps up from behind the couch. He springs at her, plumbing the butcher's knife. Angle on the couch. The blade of the butcher knife thumps into the couch. Angle on Lori and the shape. Instinctively, Lori raises the knitting needle and drives it home right into the shape's neck. The shape springs backward, clawing at the needle, rolling his head back and forth. Then suddenly he freezes, hands outstretched, motionless, and falls into a heap on the floor. Lori sits there, the shape doesn't move. Lori begins to cry again, harder and harder. And I think we'll end it there. We will do a part 4. I want to keep you guys in suspense of what happens in the end. Let's see here. I want to make sure I get the right spot to leave off here. Let's see here. Well, anyway, guys, I lost my spot, but I'll find it. Must have went a little farther than what I expected here. I was kind of seeing how much more I had to read, but I think it's good to stop there. And we will do a part 4. Sometime at the beginning of November, we'll do a part 4 to this. And I think you guys, hopefully you can wait patiently to hear the ending of this. Anyway, guys, I appreciate you guys hanging out with me today. And this cigar has been great so far, really overall. I definitely let it go out on me this time, but I've had to do a couple relights on the cigar, but it's really holding up well, and it's doing really well actually. It's been a really good cigar so far. It really has. The construction continues to do well. It builds up really nice ash, which I've dropped a couple times now. The draw is great still. All the aromas are great in the air. It's just a really good cigar. But again, this is the Bolivar Churchill 7x49. Wrapper Honduras, binder is USA, Connecticut. Filler is Dominican Republic and Nicaragua. It's been more of a medium-bodied cigar than full. made by General Cigar Dominicana, country of origins, the Dominican Republic. And I've had taste notes of earth and oak, spice, some natural tobacco sweetness, some kind of toasted buttered toast or like buttered toast, some coffee as well, some cream coffee kind of. It's been a really creamy cigar so far, really good, and I just love everything about this cigar. But again, there it is right there. Now, if you guys can see that, there we go. So anyway, Bolivars are great cigars. If you've never had one, make sure you try one today. I hope you guys have enjoyed this today, and hope you guys have enjoyed my scenery over here. Anyway, I wanted to show you guys my shirt. World Champion 1978 Power Walker. Anyway, I love this shirt. I'm glad I could wear it today. So, but anyway, guys, I appreciate you being here. I appreciate all of you. And happy Halloween. Halloween's tomorrow. Around the beginning of November sometime, I'll get this part 4 in and we'll finish this up. And I can't wait to do that, guys. So, but until then, I appreciate you guys so much. And you guys have a great, great rest of your day. Have a great Halloween. And please be safe out there, guys. Thank you for all your support to me. And again, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, please do that today. Leave a like, leave your comments, questions, and feedback. Share this content with everybody you know. And I'd sure like to see you guys put some comments in on the scripts I've read so far today. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think of the whole Halloween franchise. Let me know what you love about it or what you maybe even hate about it. But let me know, guys. Get involved. Leave me some comments, questions, feedback. I'd sure love to hear from you guys. And you guys have a great rest of your evening or day, wherever you're at. And I'll see you guys soon. Happy Halloween, guys. Bye bye now.